Joining us now to discuss is Congressman Adam Kinzinger. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you talk about the issue of criminality? Do you see things heading that way for former President Trump?
Well, look, what we put out is what we believe to be seditious conspiracy, a failed coup. We cannot say yes or no, this is criminal or this isn't. That is for specifically the Department of Justice. That's not our charge. But I think we can put out some pretty solid evidence. You saw the top lines of those yesterday. We'll delve more into that over the week. And not to mention, more people could be flushed out in this. We're not closing our investigation yet. And I think, DOJ and Attorney General Merrick Garland should watch this and figure out if that reaches their threshold. But certainly, as Americans, this cannot be how we do transfers of power.
Obviously, it was moved into prime time, and a lot of people watched or did not watch. Did the people that maybe should have watched not watch? I mean, how do you think it reaches the person who doesn't believe this was an insurrection?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going into this with any belief that we're going to turn everybody's minds, because I think there are people that have been so abused by President Trump. They've been so lied to. He's taken their trust and he's torn it and used it for his own political ends, that there's probably any facts you can put in front of them, but they have been convinced that Donald Trump is, short of the second coming of Christ. And so I'm not sure if we can convince those immediately, but here's what I know. We will convince some people that maybe didn't know everything that was going on, or maybe, being reminded of the violence of that day. But the one thing I'm most excited about in the long term is knowing that the history books will reflect accurately that day. Because as of today, the truth, the narrative that you saw yesterday, is at war with things like it was the FBI, or it was Antifa, or it was a tourist visit, which after you saw those videos yesterday was even more laughable than when he said it.
I would imagine one of your objectives is to make sure that this never happens again. What measures have you thought of that could make sure that this doesn't happen again?
It's a great question. I think that is the most important thing we can do. The biggest thing is nothing's changed. This could have been a dry run for a future coup. So we as Americans have got to do. I think there's changes to the Electoral Count Act, for instance, but really what it gets down to, the very basic thing, people have to obey their oath. We swear an oath to do the right thing. Let's say we pass a law in Congress. Let's say the president vetoes it. We override it. The president then has to still implement that law. If the president makes a decision not to do that, there's nothing Congress can do. We're not sending the Capitol Police to enforce it. It's the president making a decision to obey his oath. And so we have that compact that exists. When that breaks down, as it did after the election and on January 6th and since, that's a big problem. So the biggest thing I say to people is commit yourself to truth and commit yourself to voting for candidates that are committed to their oath and truth.
Well, speaking of candidates, President Trump has not said if he will run again. What does this mean for the Republican Party, and what are your plans for the future?
Look, my plans are, finish this out well, take a little bit of a breather, but stay involved. That Country First is growing really fast. We've had some good wins against some of the insurrectionists and the crazies in the party that would lie to people. In terms of Trump's future, look, I guess 3 years ago or 2 years ago, I never expected he'd run again. Now I expect maybe he will. But I certainly think if America wants a chaotic future, vote for Donald Trump. I would say to my Republican friends at this point, without making endorsements, vote for anybody but.
All right, Adam Kinzinger, we appreciate you joining us this morning.
Thank you, sir.